See this? This right here? This is, little known fact, the greatest weapon known to mankind. Yeah. Mine is the spear that will pierce the heavens themselves! Okay, so today's video is going to be about our old buddy, our old pal from the East Blue. You know, we've forgotten about him. He's been sending you postcards. Why aren't you responding? I'm, of course, talking about the pirate Admiral himself. Not Blackbeard. I think it was actually the pirate Commodore. But his name is Don Krieg. And that's the way you gotta say it. Krieg. Gotta get the diaphragm up in there. Alright, so back in the halcyon days of my childhood, back when Tekking was a precocious little 12-year-old, I was exposed to the majesty of One Piece. The downside is I was exposed to the majesty of One Piece through 4Kids Entertainment. So it was kind of like being presented with a delicious meal. Like, here are some delicious spaghetti and meatballs. I'm like, oh, that looks great. And then they just dump out an entire bottle of pepper and just be like, yeah, well, here you go. It's still technically edible, but it's gonna burn going down. I'm like, well, that's just lovely. And I still ate it. Now look. When I was 12 years old, I was aware of how bad the 4Kids dub was in places, but going back and re-experiencing it for the first time in a long time through that little side series I'm doing in my vlog channel, you know, Tekking versus 4Kids, I'm realizing a lot of stuff that I don't remember back then. Like the most recent episode we did with Miss Valentine, who has the same voice as Tails from Sonic the Hedgehog, because that's something that fits Miss Valentine's character. Yeah, like, let's get on with the shoe! You gotta watch the episode to understand how much that sucks. Oh wait, no you don't. It's a crappy pun no matter what context you're in, okay? I don't remember that kind of stuff back then. But even back then, you know, it was like, okay, this was not the best, but hey, it was the best that a lot of Americans had, okay? It's like, you got lemons, you make, I don't know, grape juice or something. You just gotta go with it, right? And you know, I remember watching the rap, and I know the rap was kind of smacked around for a long time. Like, nobody likes the rap. I'm like, hey, everybody remembers it. It's kind of like an iconic thing, alright? It was this really catchy song that gets stuck in your head, you know, probably more so than if 4Kids would have made an English dub of We Are, the first opening, which, by the way, they did. You can go on YouTube and look it up. Yeah, when 4Kids first announced that they got the rights to One Piece, they released an English promo of We Are. And it was good, but it probably wouldn't have been as memorable, or I guess infamous, as the rap, but it's catchy, and we all remember, like, his name's Solo, he's just like a samurai, and an L-A-D-Y, that means lady. Nami's not shy, and no, she's certainly not shy. But, no, then we get to the Bharati Arc, and I'm witnessing the glory of Sanji, and I'm thinking, okay, his voice is kinda out there, but he's a pretty cool character. I like, you know, his like, little dartboard brow, and he uses kicks, and he dresses very suave. I like Sanji's character. And then we get Don Krieg and Gein, the villains of the Bharati Arc. Although they are kind of watered down a little bit, considering that Mihawk shows up halfway through. You know, that's not that great. It's just like, you think Krieg and Gein are like the really badass villains of the Bharati Arc, and then this ridiculously powerful swordsman, Mihawk, just shows up out of nowhere and was like, oh yeah, I kick these guys' asses. Then he slices Zoro down, and then he just floats away on his little coffin boat. And everyone's like, okay, I mean, we could still fight you, Krieg, but that guy he clearly kicked your ass, so it's like, we can beat you at this point, but it's like, is it really gonna matter? This would be like in the middle of Alabasta when the crew was fighting against Baroque Works and Crocodilio. All of a sudden, like, Kaido just breaks in, and Kaido just, BAM! Knocks away, like, Mr. One or something, and like, alright, I did that, now I'm gonna leave now, and then he just walks away, and everyone's like, alright, I guess we could still fight Crocodile, but that guy is clearly the bigger threat. It is not even a big deal at this point. Okay, so Don Krieg was militarily the strongest pirate in the East Blue. Alright, and he sort of did it in a similar way to Blackbeard, where he was referred to as, like, the pirate Commodore or the pirate Admiral, right? Except, I think in Krieg's case, he pretty much just, like, accepted anybody into his crew. He had a crew of 5,000 men. I mean, you don't get that many men if you're doing a selected vetting process. It probably, like, anybody that's like, I want to be a pirate, like, okay, join my crew, because the way Krieg fought was pretty much just, like, quantity over quality. Overwhelm them with numbers. And considering that the East Blue is the weakest ocean, the average bounty for someone in the East Blue is only 3 million berries, and if you manage to get all the way up to 10 million berries or higher, that's considered fairly impressive. Nowadays, that's nothing. That's a drop in the bucket. You know, you could have Luffy come back. Screw it, not even Luffy. You could have Usopp or Nami team up and go back and just fight a boss gauntlet of all of the enemies from the East. Captain Morgan, Buggy, Kuro, Krieg, Gein, Arlong, Karubi, Chu. You could just have them fight the boss gauntlet and they would probably win and, like, call it an afternoon, you know? Nami literally has the power of the king of the Greek gods at her disposal now. So, yeah, they're not really that all impressive now, looking back on it, but the way Krieg set up his crew was basically like, I think it was more like a big fish in a small pond, sort of got full of himself. He's like, oh man, I have this huge pirate armada. I got this giant flagship, the Dreadnought Saber, this huge galleon. I got 49 other ships under my employ, and I got 5,000 men. Most of them, like I said, aren't that impressive, can probably barely hold a freaking cutlass, but hey, it's like you got numbers, right? When the pirate fleet rolls up in your freaking town, your tiny little village in the middle of the East Blue, and it's flying Don Krieg's Jolly Roger, which I gotta give it to him. I do enjoy Don Krieg's Jolly Roger. I think out of all of the original Jolly Rogers in the East, this was my favorite. I don't know why. I think it's just because the skull is a little different, and then you got the two giant hourglasses on the side, basically like, you know, your time is up. You know, it's the Krieg Armada has arrived here. And also keep in mind, like, outside of Kokoyashi Village, which is ruled over by Arlong, most other places we've seen in the East are just tiny little villages, so it's not even really fair. It's like overkill, you know? It's just like, 5,000 pirates! We will take command of Syrup Village! You know, it's like, you don't need you only need like 50 people to take over Syrup Village, provided Luffy and Zoro are not currently on the island. You know, right, okay. But hey, in terms of, like, an actual force to be reckoned with, not that many people. You got Krieg himself, and you got Gein, who is the Demon Man, and then you got Pearl. Okay, so basically you just got Krieg and Gein. Alright, I'll talk about Pearl very briefly. Pearl is this large man that decides to deck himself out in giant, like, manhole covers and with pearls, and he can apparently light himself on fire. How? Well, you know, as we all know, you aspiring geologists out there, if you take a pearl and you smack them together enough, your entire body gets lit on fire, because pearls have a element of spontaneous combustion. I don't know how it works, but he can light himself on fire. That's the thing, right? Okay. The funniest thing about Pearl that I remember is there is such a huge contrast between the way he's portrayed in the original and in the 4Kids dub. It's literally night and day. In the original Japanese and in the Funimation, he actually talks very high class, very, like, kind of snobbish, sort of, like, oh, I am Pearl. Oh, you will now feel the wrath of my flaming manhole covers. You know, he's like, can you please, chef, please fetch me some foie gras and caviar, you know, that kind of thing. He's all about very high class. In the 4Kids dub, they make him into a surfer dude. They, like, Michelangelo from the Teenage Mutant. I'm not even kidding. Like, dude, how you guys doing today? Whoa, this is gonna be totally radical, bro. You can kick people, well, I can light myself on fire, man. Let's go. And then let's bust some gnarly waves after this, broski. It's hilarious. It's like the biggest contrast ever. I remember, and I didn't even know until I watched the Funimation dub, and I'm like, oh, there's that dude that was that stupid surfer, and then he's talking, like, all eloquent and shit. I'm like, what? Huh? Why did they make him? Okay, fine. Because, come on, 4Kids, you can't make the snobbish, like, you can't make that guy seem funny with that accent, go watch Team 4 Star's Attack on Titan Abridged, the first episode that all will ever exist, unfortunately, and the way that they portray Gein. That's how you could have done Pearl. It would be beautiful. Okay. So yeah, Pearl's not all that impressive, but Gein and Krieg rather are. Gein is the right-hand man to Krieg, and by the way, combining their bounties together, Krieg has a bounty of 17 million, which is 10 million plus. That is impressive. And Gein had a bounty of 12 million, alright? So if you take the bounties of them together, it's about 29 million, which is just shy of Luffy's first bounties. So you can see that, at least in the perspective of the East, these two working together, they were a fighting force. I mean, when 5,000 men show up at your island and take it over, I mean, even if most of them don't know how to fight, it's still, like, numbers overwhelm. And I think what happened with Krieg is he got full of himself. He's a very arrogant kind of, I don't know, he sort of looks like a gorilla, kinda, with the sideburns and shit. He's a very arrogant kind of dude. So he's like, man, I own the entire East Blue, basically, except for Kokoyashi. So now we could go to the Grand Line. I'm gonna take this massive fleet of mine to the Grand Line. And so he did. He took his massive fleet to the Grand Line, and he got totally bushwhacked up and down by one man, who was Mihawk. Mihawk, and you know the way it went down is Mihawk didn't instigate anything. You know how it worked was Krieg and his ship were sailing in the Grand Line, and then all of a sudden Mihawk's ship is just happened to be floating by, and they probably got in his way or something, and they cut him off, and Mihawk's like, they bothered him, they woke him up during his nap, and there's shing shing, and then like 49 ships are just gone, just like that. And the remaining ship, the Dreadnought Saber, barely managed to make it through the comm belt. It was torn to shreds by the time it made it back to the east. He only had about 100 men left. That was really the purpose of Krieg. That was the purpose of Krieg that Oda set up. It's just like, I'm gonna set up this huge pirate force, and I'm gonna really hammer it in how dangerous the Grand Line is. He had 50 ships, now he only has one. He had 5,000 men, now he has less than 100. Alright, and he was apparently the most successful pirate in the East Blue. Now, yeah, right, you had Arlong, who was stronger, but keep in mind, Arlong kinda, actually, the, big fish in a small pond sort of thing is very apt for Arlong in a literal sense and also a figurative sense, because after Arlong got freed from Impel Down because of Jinbei, Arlong could not take over Fishman Island. There were so many people that were stronger than him, and Jinbei beat the crap out of Arlong on more than one occasion. So I think Arlong felt it like, oh, okay, fine, I'll leave Fishman Island, I'll go to the east, the weakest ocean, I'll set up my shop there, then I can rule over that entire place, and I could be that kind of, like, I can rule over the humans as I've always wanted, That was the intention of Arlong, but for the most part, Arlong just stayed on Kokoyashi. He didn't, create this massive campaign of destruction all over the east. That was Krieg's thing, but if Krieg ever did wander into Kokoyashi Village, and I'm thinking maybe Krieg was smart enough not to do that, but yeah, Arlong and Chu and Karubi, they would have probably beat the crap out of their crew pretty easily, and then Arlong would have defeated Krieg himself, and Karubi could take on Gein or something, right? But in terms of, like, military powers and stuff, yeah, he was fairly impressive. Also, a little side note about Krieg, I didn't know when to bring this up, but this is how he looks in the Bharati Arc, and when we see him, alright? And then he has another, shot of him during the first opening, We Are, and he has way longer hair. So, I don't know, I'm assuming when he was in the Grand Line, he had this epic mane, and then he pissed Mihawk off, and he started cutting everything up, and he sliced off all of Krieg's hair before Krieg could even, respond. He's like, you stupid swordsman, what do you think you can— Shing! Captain, 49 of our ships are gone. Okay. I don't know what that word is. Gein, what's that word? I don't know what that word is. Rutabaga? No, the word that you say when you turn around and you don't fight. Retreat? That's it. Let's retreat. Alright, so, I don't know. That's the way I like to view it, but for some reason in the original opening, he has a super epic mane of hair, and then when we see him, he's like crew cut. I don't know. Epic sideburns, though. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Sai, actually. A fan of mine brought this up last night. I mentioned this on Twitter. I'm like, I'm going to be talking about Don Krieg today. Like, did you know Don Krieg and Don Sai have a lot of similarities? They both have Don in their title. They're both the leaders of like a pirate navy, sort of. The Hapo Navy in Sai's case and the pirate armada in Krieg's case. They both have very similar facial features. They kind of look like gorilla-esque, and they have the epic sideburns. They both use spears to fight. Okay, so either Sai is the illegitimate son of Krieg, or Oda just really liked the design of Krieg and he wanted to bring him back into the new world, and now he's a member of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet, because he's like, well, I can't bring back Krieg, but I like the design, so here's Sai. I'll be like, okay, let's just roll with that, I guess. I think it was noted. So the way Krieg fought, he wasn't a physically weak guy. He was when he was, like, starving to death, but that was the whole point of the Bharati Arc. You know, we will serve anyone on an empty stomach. So Sanji serves Gein, and then, you know, eventually Krieg shows back up and is like, oh, do not feed him, he will kill us all! And Sanji's like, I gotta do it. It's my code as a cook. I'm apparently Batman crossed with Dirty Harry right now. Patty, fire up the skillet. I'm gonna make some salmon. Yeah, okay, so he gives it to Krieg. He eats it. And of course, Krieg, after witnessing the kindness in Sanji and looking around and seeing all the people that are terrified of him, he decides to have a change of heart. He scarfs down his food. He sets down his plate. He stands back up, and he declares, I'm gonna kill you all! You were idiots! I'm like, damn it, Sanji! Okay. So, the all-out fight begins, and Krieg, pretty muscular guy, he's decked out in golden armor, because, of course, I don't think gold would be a very effective armor. I feel like pure gold, like 24 karat gold, not the best sort of, it's not very durable, you know, kind of soft compared to a lot of other metals. Maybe it was just gold plated, I don't know, but he's decked out in gold armor. He's got these huge shoulder pads that convert into like a shield, and he can also use them as a gas, you know, launcher, you know, sends off gas bombs and explode. He also has a spear gun launcher, and the spears are tipped with poison. He's got a machine gun. He's got an iron net. His most dangerous technique ever, the iron net. So Krieg is sort of a guy that's decked out kind of like Batman. He's got like a utility belt. He's got all this stuff on him. When Luffy starts to fight him, it's one of his more annoying fights, whereas with Buggy, he just bazookaed away once. Krieg takes a few bazookas. I think Luffy used bazooka like 3 or 4 times against Krieg. He also has this giant iron ball he started swinging around and knocking Luffy around with. Krieg apparently has access to Blamenko's Devil Fruit, Blamenko being the 6th Division commander of the Whitebeard crew, the guy that can pull a hammer out of his chin flaps. Yeah, because Krieg could just pull stuff out of nowhere. Like, he has this giant porcupine shield. It's like a sheet of metal that's covered in spikes, and he just pulls that out of hammer space and just like, and then Luffy just punches right through it. He's got this diamond, like, brass knuckle gauntlet thing, and he punches it. As we all know, diamond is the most unbreakable thing ever, right? So, yeah, he has all these, like, he has gadgets, he has tools and toys and things, right? But this really does nothing more than just kind of annoy Luffy and slow him down a little bit. He has a gas bomb called MH5, which is apparently a really discount gas bomb, because it, you know, even when you're affected by it like Gein is, it doesn't really immediately drop you, it doesn't like paralyze you or anything, it just kind of makes you get bags under your eyes and just makes you feel a little sick, like you're kind of a little bit under the weather. So, I mean, I don't know, I'm thinking maybe Gein might still be alive. The underlying theme is Gein got poisoned, and then he took the remaining crew in this tiny little boat, and he sailed off to sea without Krieg, and he made a promise, I think, to see Sanji again, but we don't know what happened to him. He's assumingly he just died at sea, but I wouldn't be surprised. You don't even need to retcon it. You don't even need to, like, I found a miracle cure. You don't even need to do that. You could just, like, run into Gein later somewhere in the story and be like, Gein, how did you survive? And be like, oh, that gas bomb, Don Krieg bought that on freaking sale from some weird clown dude. So, right, it was like, it was crap to begin with. It was like the dollar store off-brand. I'm fine. I was sick for like 2 days, and then I was alright. I took some cold medicine. It's all good. So, there's that. And then there was the poison darts that suction cups, as in the 4Kids dub, where Krieg fires them out of his shield launcher, and they pierced Luffy, but once again, they didn't really do anything to slow him down. Luffy just pulled him out and just like, whatever. Bazooka! 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 Broke Krieg's armor, and then finally his last-ditch thing to really fight against Luffy was the iron net. But Luffy was able to squirm out of it, and then grabbed onto Krieg with his feet, and then used the Gamu Gamu no giant hammer! Or giant gavel, or however you want to... It pounds Krieg into the ground like a tent pole! Look at that! Right there. That's when you know it's over. That's when it's like... Oh, okay. I lost. I'm sorry. So yeah, Krieg was defeated. I can't remember actually what they did with Krieg. Did Gein take Krieg away? He might have. I don't know, because I remember Gein having that tiny little boat and just throwing all of his, like, crew members on it, and they're all, like, passed out. Krieg might have been on there, and Gein just kicks the boat off to sea. I'm like, later, Sanji. Alright, whatever. Okay. But yeah, Gein was way more of an interesting villain in that arc. Because, whereas with Krieg, he didn't care about the kindness of Sanji or anybody, even after getting the food, after getting saved from starvation, he gets right back up and defeats, tries to kill everybody. With Gein, at least, he was like, he was the demon man, but he became the more human one out of the two, right? And this is, by the way... He was betrayed by Krieg after Gein decides, I don't want to fight Sanji after their little scuffle. Krieg is basically like, you're a pathetic loser, Gein. I'm going to get rid of you. This was after Gein literally sacrificed himself for Krieg. Because what happened was this. After Krieg got defeated by Mihawk and they had to get through the Calm Belt back into the East and they were all banged up, they got back to the East Blue, and then Full Body's ship, the lieutenant from the Marines, showed up, and they're like, ah, crap, we gotta get away from the Marines now. And so Gein disguised himself as Krieg, got into a ship, and sailed away. And then, Full Body followed him. Eventually, Full Body captured Gein on the ship, and then they went to the Bharati, and then that's how that happened there. So Krieg doesn't even care, though. Krieg doesn't care what Gein did for him, how he risked his life, how he was captured by the Marines. It's like, you lost. You're nothing but scum. Even though you're my right-hand man, and you're easily the second strongest guy on this entire ship. Because I'm not... who is the third? Pearl? That's a pretty big gap there. So it's like, yeah, but Krieg don't care. So Krieg, pretty one-dimensional villain. Didn't really have a lot of interesting things going on for him outside of his outfit, his cool armor, and all of his little gadgets and things. Outside of that, not a really interesting guy. So I'm hoping his reincarnation, Don Sai, does a little bit of a better job. And I'm alright with not seeing Krieg again. I mean, I liked his design, but beyond that, not a very interesting character. But if you're going to bring back anybody out of that whole group, bring back Gein. I think it could work. It would have been really cool if Oda would have done that in one of the cover pages. Like, that from the decks of the world, 2 years later, we see Gein just chilling out in the Grand Line somewhere. Like, oh, he survived. That's all we need. The same thing that happened with Mr. 9 and Miss Monday. We didn't really know about the fate of those two at Whiskey Peak. But then we find out later that they survived and they got married and they have a kid. Show Gein out there in the... It doesn't have to still be a pirate. He could just be a chef or something. That would actually be really poetic. If Gein was now somewhere in the East Blue or somewhere in the Grand Line and he got better and now he opened like a soba stand or something and he's trying to become a chef in the memory of Sanji. That would have been cool. Something like that. Maybe a tiny little ramen stand he's trying to make. Like, have my demon-faced ramen. Here you go. I don't know, man. Just thinking of ideas. But that was Don Krieg, until we get to Arlong, the most impressive, the most powerful pirate in the East. Oh, by the way, one more thing to mention with that. You gotta also keep in mind, I'm not saying the difference would be too significant, because Luffy still beat the crap out of Krieg either way, but Krieg, I mean, he did just recover from a traumatic experience with Mihawk, and then being starved for a few weeks. In the One Piece world, it's like, I'm starving for a few weeks. Nom nom, I had one plate of food. I'm back to full power. Like that time that Zoro was starved at, Shell Town. I think it was like 3 weeks, like a month without food. And then after Luffy frees him, they just immediately go to the tavern, to the restaurant where Rika works at. And Zoro just pounds down like 10 plates. I'm like, I'm all good now. I'm like, no, Zoro, that's not how it works. You're starved for 3 weeks without no food, and then you just eat 10 plates. Your body would go into shock and you would die. There's no debate about that. But even beyond that, Krieg was not maybe at his full power then, and also his ship was in ruins. Like, I think if Krieg would have rolled up to the Bharati with 50 ships in pristine condition and 5,000 men ready to fight, Luffy still would have beaten Krieg, but that would have been so much of a cooler little arc, wouldn't it? Like, you would have gotten to see, like, every chef aboard the Bharati. You would have seen maybe, like, Zeph whipping out his leg a little bit more. Just, I can imagine Sanji just running down the decks of these ships, like, kicking the crap out of all of this riffraff pirates. Like, that would have been cool just to see that large-scale battle. But I can understand why Oda whittled it down a little more. And later on, we do see this. The Straw Hats taking on an absurd number of characters, like during Fishman Island, where they take down basically, like 5,000 Fishman each, during the battle there. So, right. But, yeah, I will end it out with the origin of why I have to say Don Krieg. All right, so this actually goes back to South Park. Any South Park fans out there? I thought the last few seasons were kind of But back, when I was in high school, South Park, funniest shit ever. There was an episode of South Park, it was a two-parter. It was the pandemic episode. It was the one with the giant guinea pigs that were, like, scopatoned into the actual episode. Remember that one? It's kind of a play off Cloverfield. That's what they were parodying. There was a scene in the episode where there's a pirate guinea pig. Just go with it. And there's a character named Craig that was helping out the main kids, like Kyle and Stan and Cartman and everybody. There's this other guy named Craig who's just off to the side, but in that one episode, he was like a main character. And the pirate guinea pig talks like this. He's like, "Curse ye, Craig!" I don't know why. I just like the way he's like, Craig. So now every time I hear anybody named Craig, I have to say Craig. And that kind of sounds similar to Krieg. So there we go. Also, did you know Krieg was German for war? I don't think a single person mentioned that. But yes, Krieg is in fact German for war. Alright. Well, we did a video about Buggy and a video about Alvida. I already did that with the Subinomi. Did a video about Kuro. Did a video about Krieg. So, video about Arlong? I guess. I'll do the video about Arlong before I do the video about Morgan, but I kind of have to do the video about Morgan. Alright, well, you guys have a good one. Tekking, signing out. Krieg.